Hello everyone, and welcome to another Wild Edibles episode, where today we'll be taking a look at a plant that until recently I was completely unaware of, and that plant is bog yellowcress. So if the name is any indication, I am in a fairly wet part of the property, one I don't very often traverse. And that's part of the reason I really didn't know of its existence. It may have been here, might have been a common staple of this area for quite a long time, and I just never noticed it because, as I said, I very rarely actually go into this part of the woods. And right here, as I'm showing you guys, is a deer path. This area is quite wet. There's a swamp right over there, and if I'll show you, I'm actually standing on a bit that's not part of the path, because the problem with the paths in this area is while they do negotiate you around some trees and thick brush, once they're stepped on, they become quite a bit of thick, deep mud. And any area where you can actually get in between the thick brush, the small trees such as that, the deer are going to use that too. And it tends to become very difficult to traverse these regions unless you have proper shoes. And there's really not much here, except the reason I was here, the reason I was walking along these paths, is that in and around here, in these lower brush-like trees, there are grapevines. And here, also, by the way, these are not grapes. I'm pretty sure this is some variant of holly that's actually toxic. So, yes, not grapes. But as I was saying, there are grapevines here, and because they're restricted to sort of lower trees, where they grow upon lower trees, here's an example of one of these grapevines that's growing on a lower tree. They can grow older, get bigger, grow to maturity, and produce grapes that you can actually reach. Because a lot of the taller trees, yes, they do have grape vines on them, but you actually can't reach the grapes. So this is one of the rare times of the year that I'm actually in these sort of marshy areas looking for wild edibles. And as I was walking in this part of the woods, I noticed this and many other similar plants. And I started wondering, it actually looks a lot like a wild edible. So I looked it up, and in fact it was. Now, why would I say that this plant looks like a wild edible? Well, actually, first I would like to preface this by saying that barring a life or death survival situation, you should always make 100% sure you know what a plant is before you actually eat it. In this case, the plant sort of tipped me off that it might be a wild edible, and then I researched it and found out that it was. I'm not running around the forest eating random plants that I don't know what they are, and I certainly wouldn't advocate anyone else to do that even if I was. But I digress. Why would I say that this plant looks like a wild edible? Well, first reason, other animals seem to agree. Anytime you see a plant that has been extensively consumed by other animals, you'll notice other plants in this area are pretty much untouched. The grasses, I'm assuming those are ferns, though I don't know what species they are. A bit of the water pepper there. But you'll notice this has a significant amount of bites taken out of it. So if other animals seem to agree that this is the preferred food, might be for you as well. Second, it has many large leaves that all come together at a single point. Other plants that do this are almost always edible, like wild carrot and such. In fact, when I first saw this plant, I almost thought it was a wild carrot or wild parsnip or something like that, because it just has that growth habit that's so characteristic of edible plants. And also, if you'll notice, it has small hairs on the stems, which is common for edible plants and highly uncommon for poisonous ones. And lastly, the leaves are matte, not shiny. Shiny leaves are an almost sure indicator that a plant is toxic. Now, any one of these things would not be enough to identify an edible plant. And all of them together really only give you a hint that it might be edible, and you sort of have to make sure for yourself through research. After the requisite research, I determined that it was, in fact, an edible plant in the family Brassicaceae, which is mustards, cabbage, all those sort of plants. And it is called bog yellowcress, which makes a whole lot of sense. So what does it taste like, you might ask? Well, let's find out. So, this is a leafy green related to cabbage, mustard. Don't have high hopes for flavor, but let's give it a try. Yep. Leafy green in the cabbage family. Sure tastes like it. Not bad. A little bitter. Cabbagey. Grassy. Yeah, it's what you would expect. In a survival situation, probably not bad though. So yeah, can't exactly call it a new favorite. At any rate, hope you all enjoyed. See ya.